Hey everybody, welcome to Center for Conscious Kids. Today is February 1st, 2018, and I just want to do a big shout out for everyone. Yay, it's our anniversary today.
Woohoo!
Woohoo!
Congratulations, Ashley.
Thank you. Thank you. Thanks for everybody joining us throughout this year of all our podcasts, our Facebook Lives, on YouTube, Instagram, and Twitter. We're very excited to have you here, and I'd like to welcome my guest, Annie Kalakar. Welcome, Annie, from Los Angeles, and she's live on the phone with me.
Hi, everyone. It's good to be back.
Today we have some exciting news we wanted to share. We both have energy healing practices, and in our practice we have come across a lot of clients, both children, adults, and many parents who have psychic abilities, who have intuitive gifts, who are very connected energetically to lots of things in their environment and their world. And we wanted to share with you today a little bit about what we call psychic care. And and how do you know if you have psychic abilities? And how would you like to learn how to work with them a little bit easier so they may not be overwhelming in your everyday experiences? So welcome, Annie. Let's get started. Let's talk about that a little bit. What makes a psychic person?
It's an excellent question. And I'm beginning to realize more and more that everybody has ability somewhere. And I think that many people have been born highly sensitive. And what that means for me is that people who are highly sensitive, they have access to feeling the energies, smelling energies, just a multitude of things. But, parents, God love them. They do the best they can. I know I certainly am doing the best I can, but oftentimes when we don't understand what psychic abilities mean in a child, we often feel lost, and it's easier to go into suppression. So many of my clients today are highly sensitive people who had to turn to coping mechanisms like drugs and alcohol and behaviors and patterns to suppress what made them feel uncomfortable feelings in their body. And so what we're looking at today is, what are your abilities as a highly sensitive person? And how are you taking care of yourself with those abilities? Because many, many times, these gifts, the call it the responsibility of these gifts, is that they're tools that we use daily to guide us and to guide others. And if we don't use them appropriately, or we suppress them, or we bury them, right?
Yes.
We lose a part of ourself, and we go through life with this sensation or understanding that I'm not living life to the fullest, and it's very much leading their life experience. And so I know, my colleagues that I surround myself with, we're asking the question more and more, is this person highly sensitive? And if so, just how sensitive are they? And, you and I are, in recent months auditing every client to find out just how sensitive they are.
Correct. And let's go through that a little bit about what are we calling our sensitivities or our psychic abilities, and what does that mean, and at what scale are people? Like, a lot of times when I look at different things like empathic or telepathic, I look at, so just to gauge kind of, because when we have a gauge or an understanding of how our innate abilities are, like how we came in, what we were born with, and what we do, it gives me an idea, it gives both of us an idea of where people are at and how much are they dealing with it. Is it a lot in their life, or is it just a little bit? Is it just a little tickle? Or are they experiencing it everywhere they go with every single person? And so what I do is help people and say, okay, from 0 to 10, and 10 being the most ability person, the most person on the planet, where are they in relation to that person who has the highest like psychic ability in that area. And that's how kind of I rate like how people are doing to give an idea of the depth of their psychic ability without having to go through a big battery of tests.
Let me add to that, Ashley, because we have encountered something that we call the suppression scale. How much is the person veiling their own talents?
Correct.
And so while you're doing this test on yourself in this moment, asking yourself first and foremost, how highly sensitive am I? And then tune in. So the way you want to tune in is you want to clear all your filters and go to neutral. Let go of attachment to outcome so that you can ask very clear 1 to 10 questions or yes, no questions, okay?
Yeah.
So clear yourself, go to neutral, and anything that you think you know about yourself or the universe, just put that aside for a brief moment and ask yourself, how highly sensitive are you? And then ask yourself, am I empathic? And I think Ashley and I have been discovering very clear and unusual patterns in people who are empathic. We are learning that many of their illnesses are not their own. And then we're asking questions about how often has this person in their lifetime taken on the illnesses or the emotions of another person in an attempt to heal the other person and make them feel better, because that is essentially the loving heart of an empath.
Exactly. And let's go into what an empath is a little bit. And we use it from the basic terminology of where that is a person who can feel other people's feelings. And I just wanted to add in this little aspect too, is I really do believe, and I know you do too, Annie, that every person on this planet, every human being is born empathic on one level or another, because really as infants, how do we first relate to our world? We relate to our world through touch and emotions, right? Crying, smiling, interacting, responding to smiles. We respond more as infants. We don't have a language. We don't know how to talk. We don't know how to formulate huge thoughts as an infant. And so we mostly learn and receive and express through emotions as an infant. So on one level or another, everybody's empathic. But we're talking about the ones that are very, very empathic to the part where they walk into a room and they can feel other people's emotions literally in their body in some sort of way. They really get a huge physical sensation in their body about that. And so I think talking about that for a moment, and then we were also talking about the varying degrees of what an empath can be in the sense of categories. So like, for example, we were talking about, feeling other people's feelings in the room, but then you had mentioned also, is that my feelings or somebody else's feelings? But the other thing is, and we can even empath or physically surrogate or bring in other people's physical feelings. So let's say somebody who's highly sensitive to this ability, they could walk in a room and let's say another person has a headache, and then all of a sudden, right out of the blue, they have a headache. So they're physically empathing in the sensations of what a headache is, recreating the tension patterns, and they get the headache as well. And they didn't even know it.
I think humans are wired for rapport. In other words, deep, deep down inside of us on the unconscious level, we all understand on some level that we're all one. And so we attempt to get into rapport with the other person energetically. We sometimes mirror their body language, their voice. We get into the same flow of their speech. And these are all beautiful ways that we create rapport with people so we can relate better and have harmonious experiences. But for people who are very open to being empathic, they often go beyond that normal rapport building and they start to feel and experience what the other person is experiencing. I know with my son, he likes to get barefoot and then climb the door jambs in the hallway. And when he jumps down onto the hard tile floor, I literally feel it as I feel the impact of his jump as a reverb from my feet all the way up through my body. And it's so painful. And I haven't figured out how to turn that part off. And I think part of it is, as a mother, we feel our children more than anybody else ever will. I know I've interviewed many, many mothers, and perhaps, it could be linked to the fact that their DNA is still in our body. And so what's happening to them is happening to us. Mm-hmm. But we have other categories that we look at for people who are empathic.
It's true.
There are people that can feel the energy of a place.
Yes.
And we're not just talking about really cool places like Sedona where they can feel the vortexes. No, they can walk into a parking garage and feel the place and go, oh no, I don't like this at all. I got to get out of here, right?
Right.
And then there's people that can walk somewhere else and go, oh, somebody died here. Like, I can feel the grief. I can feel the sorrow leading up to the event, and they just feel the energy of the place. And then there are those who can feel things, and that can be a wide variety of things. And I think
absolutely. I had one client and a 13-year-old in Colorado, and it was amazing. Her and her mom were in the grocery store, and she completely freaked out, the 13-year-old, and dropped to the floor and said, Mom, take cover. The mom said, take cover from what? And she said, a tornado's coming. And so she was empathing in the weather, and luckily they had smartphones. So the mom Googled the nearest tornado happening in the area in Colorado, and it was 300 miles away. And so she showed the daughter, it's 300 miles away. It's okay. You can get up off the floor now.
Yeah.
And it was really fascinating because the mom was like, well, I want her to get rid of that because that is annoying and that is not working. And I said, well, in the car, can you show her mile markers on the road and give her an idea of how big a mile is? And then she can begin to understand how far 300 miles away is and those kinds of ideas. And what if it's not so bad her being in tune with the weather on that level or that scale? What does that mean if she's that connected to a tornado or weather disturbances? What could she be when she grows up? And the mom goes, a meteorologist? I go, yeah, or a tornado helper or a researcher or all kinds of things that's connected to the weather, and be a huge gift to society and our community about supporting us and alerting us when weather patterns are changing, for example. So it's not necessarily a bad thing. She just needed to understand that that was happening to her. And it blew her away because she instantly went into fear about that weather pattern, which most people would if it was right around the corner.
Yeah. And, that makes me think of our other list, which includes not just weather, but animals. People have very deep connections with animals. I call my older brother Dr. Doolittle because he can talk to just about any animal and relate to them and understand their depression or anything else and help them heal it. I have it with plants, and I have a very sad story about plants. I was writing my memoir after traveling through India, and I had just, covered my entire balcony with all these beautiful summer plants. And while I was trying to write, I could hear them saying, I need water. And I kept complaining to my writing coach, like, these plants are annoying me. They're so distracting. And she goes, okay, well, why don't you create a volume control on their voice and just turn it down and let them know I will take care of you when I'm done. Well, it got to the point where I literally turned off the volume and those plants died because I couldn't, I was so focused on my writing project, and I turned off the volume. So let that also be a clue to you that you do have management skills that you can utilize if there's too much input from what's going on outside of you.
Right. Well, and you illustrated something really wonderful there too, because at that time, while you were focused on the writing, you did not recognize that you were empathing what the innate intelligence of those plants were sharing with you.
Yeah.
And you didn't recognize that you were highly sensitive to what their needs were. And then if you had known in that moment, oh, yeah, I can hear the plants talk. That's right. Okay, they're saying water. Okay, I'll get up for 2 minutes and get a
Yeah.
glass of water and water them. And then the whole thing would have been just fine. You had forgotten in that moment how powerful you were and what you were experiencing and how to correct it. So I
Exactly
think
right.
many of the people we work with, they're like, why is that bothering me? I have another client who's in school, and she is an empath and a telepath, and she hates being in school. And I said, so I tuned into what her gifts were and her abilities were, her sensitivities. And from that, being an extreme telepath, that is hearing other people's thoughts, and an extreme empath, she's in a classroom in high school with 42 other kids. And it's really funny. And I explained that to her mom as well in the session. And I said, well, think of it like this. Next to her is Sally, and Sally says, geez, Johnny's butt is cute. And Johnny says, well, Sally's, is really awesome too. And then Susie's mad at Sally for throwing her under the bus from the last text they just sent out. So in the classroom, while they're trying to learn Spanish, everybody's talking about everybody, and the telepath can hear all of those thoughts being projected amongst each other. And that's where this one just felt she didn't belong, she didn't want to be there, she didn't know how to turn down the volume of what they were saying that wasn't related to what the classroom was focused on. And then it was really cute because the mom said to the daughter, you really hear all that? And she says, yes, Mom, and so much more. and,
Yeah.
and she's like, really? And she said, yeah, I just can't get them to be quiet. And she didn't recognize that it was their thoughts that they were projecting out, that they weren't really talking that way. And so for her, it was the same thing as them talking out loud to each other in those ways. And so she did not know how to deal with that. So we talked about how to deal with those abilities and gifts in those areas. Now, it's really hard a lot of times for children and for adults who are experiencing their gifts, but let's say they're not in that moment expressing their passion or their career or what they want to do. So, for example, like you and I were talking about, if a mom who's highly sensitive and the kids walk into a big outlet wholesale grocery store, for example, or our
The airport.
our
TSA.
TSA in the airport and American airports, all of those things, that lots of people in that area are uncomfortable, they're overwhelmed, they're stressed, they have a big to-do list, they're want things to happen a different way, they're frustrated. And so many empaths or telepaths experience that and don't know what to do and suddenly feel uncomfortable, overwhelm themselves, and really get entangled with all the other people's thoughts and feelings. And they don't know really how to turn it off or to change it or to turn it down or to address it. And we wanted to approach that with you all today about giving you some tools to work with so you don't feel so overwhelmed in our environment. And so, Annie, I wanted to suggest something where when we start this process, helping people kind of connect to what they experience and their overwhelm in their lives. Whenever someone walks into a situation and we're fine, and then all of a sudden they're not fine, that's a first clue to say something's happening here. Maybe some of my sensitivities or my abilities, my gifts, my intuition, my psychic abilities are turning on. I don't really want them on, and they're overwhelming me. What is it, right?
Right.
And
I
then,
think
yeah,
what you're referring to is very much tied into our limbic system. We have these parts of our brain that are hardwired for survival and assessing threats. So you may be all happy and excited. You got your paycheck and you're going to the mall to get yourself a new outfit or some shoes, maybe for your summer vacation, and you're feeling great. But after about 30 minutes, you're loaded up with all these uncomfortable feelings, as Ashley described. And part of it is, I think psychic abilities turn on when we are in an environment that we're not in very often, or is new to us. So we have that going for us in the background, and then we're in an environment where we must become more aware, but people don't necessarily adjust their awareness appropriately. They just go into awareness and everything starts to come in. So I think that's that moment, Ashley, that magic moment where people need to stop and go, I feel so different. Like I'm not the person I was when I walked in 25 minutes ago.
Right.
And that's that moment where you must stop, even though you're, holding a swimsuit on a hanger and looking at it and going, okay, is this mine? And I don't mean the swimsuit. I mean the feelings that you're experiencing in your body. Is this mine? Is this my energy? Are these my feelings? Or did I pick up someone else's? Because 9 times out of 10, I am finding with my clients, it's not theirs. And that is a huge eye-opener for most people. And I want to say, and possibly it's because I work with a lot of women, that it's not just a women's trait, but I think a lot of women experience this more than others because they're wired for cultivating relationship, cultivating nurturing in themselves and others. And I think that going into alignment with others is really a key part of that.
Yeah. And a lot of times we can go and we delve into a deeper aspect of that is like we could just suddenly be picking up kind of like a big lint pad, right? We're walking through the mall and we're just picking up everybody's emotions. But sometimes some of the people's emotions may be along the same pattern, a behavior pattern, attitude pattern, thoughts of life, values that the other person is with with who you are. And so let's say, I don't know, you could run frustration a lot in your life, like all the time. I feel frustrated. I feel like people are against me. Nothing goes my way. Everything breaks, all of those things, right? And if I run that pattern now, if I walk by somebody or walk near someone, it doesn't even need to be far or near, but sometimes in close proximity, we feel that connection too. Mm-hmm. And then that person's running frustration too. So then all of a sudden you weren't frustrated, but then you were frustrated. And you notice, okay, I wasn't frustrated a minute ago, now I am. So what does that mean? And a lot of times we'll turn, because we're used to being responsible for our feelings and our thoughts. And we'll say, oh, that was me. I must have been frustrated about something. But I'm like, wait a second, I really wasn't. So was that someone else's? And then we talk about, right, as a first tool is noticing. Second tool would be kind of brushing that off, saying that's okay, somebody was frustrated, but that's not mine. I don't own it. I don't have to fix it. I don't have to address them. I can just let it go. And then you go to let it go, and it doesn't go away. And you're like, wait a second, I thought that was somebody else's. Now I'm frustrated too, and I let theirs go, but I'm still frustrated. That's where we go a little deeper, and we say, do I run a pattern of running frustration, and did I go into agreement with that person's frustration?
Yeah.
And a lot of times then when that happens and we go into agreement with it, then it's a little bit harder to shake sometimes because it isn't just theirs, it's ours as well, because we agreed that that was true about us.
Yeah.
So in that moment, what we can do is say, okay, I get it. I picked up somebody else's like lint. I brushed it off. And then it's still there, so there's some part of me. So what part of me that feels frustrated needs support, like you said, nurturing, love. We may decide to go buy another dress or bathing suit. But in the meantime, what we really want to do is support our emotional body and say, it's okay. So maybe that's the time to like buy the bathing suit and then say, I think I'm done with shopping. I think I need to go and meditate or take a walk and do different things to give myself a little bit more nurturing because I did go in agreement with that other person and their feelings as well. So there's lots of deep ways to help those as well.
And I call that a reset, right? We're hitting the reset button so that we clear out what's not ours, we get in touch with what is ours, and then we consciously release that, or we offer comfort to our body and say, okay, I'm noticing it in the moment, and I promise I will get back to working on this to release it.
Correct. Correct. And the reason why we really focus on empaths and being empathic is, first of all, I think everybody on some level does experience it. But then also, I think it's one of the most broadest, if you could say, psychic abilities. There's so many different ways that we express and we receive empathic information, sensory information in our world.
Oh, I can't even begin to tell you some of the mad skills that people have that I want to have pom-poms in my purse that I can take out and shake, because it's so exciting to meet people who have, precognitive abilities. They have, hyper olfactory, which means they can smell stuff. My own mom could smell the pine coffins that they used in Ireland, and she'd know that someone in her family had died, and then she'd get the call. And she knew when certain people would come in spirit after they passed to visit her, because she'd smell their perfume, she'd smell their cigarettes and beer, or their dog, And so, I mean, these are common things that people don't realize. Oh my God, yeah, you're right. I used to always smell the smell, and then my mom would call or whatever, and my gosh, there's people who can hold an object and tell you about the person who touched it. And we both know children who are doing interdimensional walking.
Right.
And you and I are always doing representation and surrogacy to learn what is going on the level of soul and how it's manifesting as illness in the physical body,
right,
and then healing it, which, and we haven't even touched on a lot of the others, but we just really wanted this portion of our program today to help you identify ways in which you are probably highly sensitive and have abilities, and that you can consciously release any suppression that you put on yourself, or that your parents or your school teachers or other people put on you because they didn't understand your gifts or how to coach you, really,
right,
so that you had management tools for using those gifts.
Yeah. And we are just about to launch our ebook and booklet on supporting an empath and what that means, and in the moment, so that when you're experiencing something uncomfortable, you know where to go and have this sort of deeper information about how to restructure, reframe, and really have a happy, beautiful experience, feeling sensitive in your body, having these gifts, having these abilities.
Yes.
Yes.
I am writing a blog post for this podcast right now, and it's called Psychic Care. And I will include this list of areas for highly sensitive people, and then the associated energetic imbalances that highly sensitive people actually experience. And these would be things like magnetic imbalances or meridian imbalances, visual or auditory imbalances, that kind of a list, okay?
Yeah, those are energetic stress patterns that we experience when we feel this overwhelm, this sensory overwhelm, which is also known as, in the case of an empath, would be emotional sensations that we receive in our environment, either from other people, or it's leftover, it's residue, or from our own, and not knowing how to work with that.
Correct.
Yeah.
And the article will have a sign-up form, and when you fill that in, we'll email you this document so you can put it on your phone as a resource.
Yes.
It is going to be as concise as I possibly can make it, because we know on the phone it's got to be short and sweet. So this is going to be like first aid for your soul, right? How to survive criticism. I think this is the biggest one that people face.
Yeah.
They can feel people's criticism. They can feel the thoughts of others. They can feel the judgments being aimed at them. And that tends to be the number one item that most people I work with need to release from their energetic fields.
Yes. Yes.
So this is the kind of stuff that we're talking about, folks. We want you to have a toolbox that is just overflowing with self-care and self-management tools.
So that your gifts and everything can expand and grow and being developed in such a way that you're really comfortable and happy with your life, your experiences, and your relationships.
Yes, I was working with somebody recently who was so afraid to practice her skills with me because she was afraid that she was going to get overwhelmed.
Yes.
And after a while, I came to realize that she was finding her connection within her body to understanding when she was actually using her skills. She felt the connection in her body physically. And then it was like, okay, I realized that when we set the tone for people as facilitators and healers, and this message goes out to all the light workers, when we, as the leaders for people who need to reopen their gifts or want to increase their gifts or learn to manage their gifts, we have to lead in the spirit of trust that yes, I trust my body. I trust the information. I trust my inner guidance.
Right.
And in that spirit and in that leadership tone, other people will open and it will be comfortable and their gifts will begin to emerge.
Absolutely. And that's where the kids raise their hands and I get to be the truth of me. I get to be me. I get to be who I am. And they get to naturally start to express in ways that are very comfortable, loving, and compassionate.
Yes. Along that line, I had a very empathic woman say to me, I just want to learn how to be authentic because every time I'm with people, I become them.
Yeah. Right.
And when she leaves, there's a sense of loneliness, like, oh, they didn't get to know the real me because I became them.
Right.
So, yes.
That's very common, too.
Yeah, it is. And I share that so that people can actually connect with how they are doing something similar and that it doesn't have to be that way. We are all about empowering you to stand in your power and be your authentic self. Yes. That is where happiness and peace begin to reign and your abilities support you and you're being all that you can be.
Right.
And your life just gets enhanced in numerous ways.
Numerous ways. Well, thank you, Annie, for sharing with us today. And
my pleasure.
It was a beautiful discussion, and we just have more and more to give you for tools to help your day be as happy as you wish. Thank you all. Have a great day.